I've talked about a lot of franchises, mostly franchises that failed and disappeared into obscurity. Today's subject is a very odd case. It started off as something that was a different take on a classic story, but surprisingly turned into a franchise and had a lot of backing from a lot of big names, like Elton John, and that very weird obscure franchise is the Gnomeo and Juliet franchise. This franchise did not last long as it only got a sequel, and after that, it faded away. But why did this franchise fail so hard and become so clunky with its approach? This is Gnomeo and Juliet, how not to do a franchise. So the idea for Gnomeo and Juliet had been in development since 1999. Two guys, Rob Sparkling and John Smith, came up with the idea of telling the story of Romeo and Juliet but with garden gnomes. It was originally developed as a traditional Disney film, but it was moved over to Touchstone Pictures and produced by Elton John's film studio, Rocket Pictures. In 2011, Gnomeo and Juliet was released, and while it didn't do great, it did still make a profit with over $100 million against a $36 million budget. It got trashed by critics and audiences, but still, it did well enough that they felt confident to move forward with a sequel. Shortly after the film's run in theaters, it was announced that a sequel was in development and would adapt the classic tale of Sherlock Holmes. Okay, kind of an odd choice but could be interesting. It was originally titled Gnomeo and Juliet, Sherlock Gnomes, before shortening it to just Sherlock Gnomes, which is kind of a dumb decision. The studio that distributed the first film backed out and was acquired by Paramount, and in 2018, Sherlock Gnomes was released, and was a catastrophic failure. It got trashed by critics and audiences even more so than the first movie, and was a complete box office bomb, losing the studio millions of dollars, making only over $90 million against a $59 million budget. And after that, the franchise was dead. There wasn't any talks of a third movie or anything expanding the IP. It was dead and gone. That's the end of the short-lived franchise. So what happened? Why did Gnomeo and Juliet fail so hard as a franchise? Well, a big reason. Nobody really cared about Gnomeo and Juliet in the first place. The first movie wasn't hated or trashed like the Emoji Movie or Shark Tale, but I think it's safe to say it wasn't exactly beloved either. When you turn a movie into a franchise, you want it to guarantee success, and Gnomeo and Juliet didn't do that. People that liked the movie didn't think about it again and wasn't in love with it like people are with films like Frozen or Toy Story. At best, it was a fine movie that had some solid animation and songs. At worst, it was a weird film with an odd premise. Like, does anybody actually like garden gnomes, let alone want to watch an entire movie with them? I know I don't. The film didn't leave a lasting impact, and it wasn't a movie that was special to anybody. They didn't rewatch it or talk about it with their friends, or have it anywhere in their mind. It just came and went, and the most relevance it has is being a weird obscure memory that you experienced a long time ago and wonder if it was even real, and then forget about it and go on with your life. It wasn't a film that had any cultural significance, and when you have a film like that, it's very near impossible to get people invested in your franchise, and if you want to get people interested, you gotta do something that gives them a reason to be, and they didn't. They made a really odd choice, to make a sequel to a Shakespeare adaptation, not a Shakespeare adaptation, instead jumping to a completely different author and genre, with the only connection being that they're both British. It is a very bold and interesting direction, and they could have made it work, but they didn't really try to. The story of this villain kidnapping all the gnomes and Sherlock helping our main characters find and save them is a great idea for a sequel and a good way to continue the story, but the execution of the film was not well done. It felt like a film that was only made to make money and nothing more. It's the epitome of an empty, shallow, hollow cash grab I have ever seen, and it's no surprise to me that nobody went to go see it when it came out in theaters. People saw right through the marketing and the pandering and the weak premise and didn't even bother giving it their time even when it came out. I'm honestly gonna be surprised if anybody has actually seen Sherlock Gnomes. It's that empty and soulless, and it's no surprise to anybody that a third film wasn't made. We all saw it coming. It's a franchise that nobody cared about and nobody wanted to see again. They aren't movies that are hated and reviled as abominable embarrassments to animation like the Emoji Movie, Shark Tale or Norm of the North. It's a franchise that is one of those obscure things that came out of nowhere and then disappeared and faded away from everybody's memories and the zeitgeist as a whole, and now just exists as a strange piece of animation history that is only remembered because of its weird concept as well as the vast array of Elton John songs that are displayed in the films. Since he was one of the big names behind this franchise, at the end of the day, it's a gimmick, and gimmicks don't always translate to great movies or franchises. It did with Shrek and the Lego Movie, but those were handled with care and had a passion behind them. This never really felt like it had either of those things, and that's exactly how you don't do a franchise. Anyways guys, what do you think? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.